So Clair Obscur Expedition 33, that's a game in which I'm really excited for, and it is going to be released on April 24th, 2025. That's right, it's coming soon, and it is a real-time action / turn-based RPG game in which it is just really interesting with really immersive fantasy world. So with that being said, out of the information that I gathered, I want to share about whether or not this game will be able to run on the Steam Deck, as well as share about some important information on what to expect with Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Let's check it out. So as far as whether or not Clair Obscur Expedition 33, if it will be compatible with the Steam Deck, Noah from Steam Deck HQ, he actually got to talk to Sandfall Interactive, which is the studio behind Clair Obscur Expedition 33, and the producer, Francois, excuse me if I say the name wrong, he said that the studio really cares about having the game to be able to be compatible on the Steam Deck. Now, he didn't promise that it will be fully optimized at launch, but he said that, he really cares about having the game being able to be optimized for the Steam Deck. So there's real hope that if it doesn't work well in the beginning, hopefully it'll be more optimized later on. Now, as far as research goes, I actually saw some gameplay of it. Specifically, I looked at this guy called Santiago. Santiago, he does a lot of Steam Deck gameplay for various popular games, and it has shown that he did have access to Clair Obscur Expedition 33's demo, and based on what he did, it looks as if you were able to get a consistent 30 FPS, and at times, even though it quickly drops into the high 20s, but it quickly gets back up into the mid 30 FPS, and it is set at low preset handheld mode as far as the settings go. Now, as far as what I feel about this, I know a lot of people, they don't like games that will drop into the 20s FPS. Now, even though that happens, but I feel like potentially, again, take it with a grain of salt, I feel like potentially it will be fine because of the playstyle of the game. The reason why I say that is because Clair Obscur Expedition 33, it is a turn-based / real-time action game. So basically what that means is that there will be times where you will just manually select specific moves. So maybe, even if it slightly drops into the high 20s, it may not affect gameplay that much because you are not constantly doing various types of action. It is split between real-time action as well as turn-based. So it is not something that you'll be constantly doing real-time action. So that is something that I really think that maybe it will be fine with it occasionally dropping into the high 20s and quickly picking up to the mid 30s. But again, I don't know. We shall wait and see. I mean, obviously, when the game gets released on April 24th, I will definitely play it on the Steam Deck and share my thoughts on it to see how well the performance goes and whatnot. And hopefully, the studio keeps up to its promise about if the game doesn't run well on the Steam Deck at first, then they will just potentially make it more optimized with the Steam Deck later on. So yeah, we shall just wait and see. Now, as far as Clair Obscur Expedition 33, there are two editions that you can buy from. You can either buy the Standard Edition or the Deluxe Edition. The Standard Edition costs $50, but if you purchase it before May 1st, you'll get a 10% discount. So then if you do so, it'll be only $45. Now, as far as the Deluxe Edition goes, it is originally $60, but if you purchase before May 1st, then you'll be able to get a 10% discount as well, which will become only $54. Now, as far as the Standard Edition goes, as you might have expected, it is just the bare bones of Clair Obscur Expedition 33. It is just the base game and that's it. Now, as far as the Deluxe Edition goes, there will be some extra content. It will have obviously the base game, as well as the Flowers Collection, the Clair custom outfit for Male, as well as the Obscure custom outfit for Gustav. So yeah, my personal opinion, if you are somebody who is really interested, really intrigued about the game, probably go with the Deluxe Edition, because as far as this game goes, the Deluxe Edition just doesn't seem too expensive, and especially with the 10% discount if you buy it before May 1st, I feel like it's not too bad, but that's just my personal opinion. That's really up to you. Now, as far as the combat side of things goes with Clair Obscur Expedition 33, it is a reactive slash turn-based RPG game in which that, if you go up into combat, you'll be able to select to do specific attacks, but also at the same time, there will be some specific button you have to press to implement certain attacks. Now, as far as the thing about battles goes, you also have to stay responsive and pay attention to the enemy's attacks, in which if they attack, you might want to figure out whether or not to dodge or parry. There will be some button input shown on the screen, and if you time them correctly, it will really help to defend your party properly. Dodging may be easier because there is more grace as far as pressing the input at the proper time, but parrying is much more time sensitive. There's a really tiny window to parry properly. However, parrying, like what they say, greater stakes, greater rewards. That's the thing about Clair Obscur Expedition 33 goes with parrying, is that since parrying is more time sensitive, if you do a successful parrying, it leads to a powerful counter attack, so which will also greatly affect gameplay. It will help turn gameplay in your favor if you parry properly. Now, as far as every character goes, they all have basic attacks, and basic attacks, as you can expect, they give really low damage output, and where the other kind of more advanced type of attacks, they actually call it skills, in which it involves timing and reactive commands, and where the more accurate you get with the timing, there's a better outcome. You could be able to deal much more damage to the enemy. It will work in your favor. However, as far as using those skills, aka the attacks that are not basic, it will consume AP. AP stands for action points, and where the amount of AP consumed for a skill, it varies upon what specific skill you use. I mean, most likely, obviously, if it's a skill that is much more effective, it will consume more AP, kind of like a lot of other, RPGs or JRPG games, how they function. And by default, you will gain 1 action point per turn. Although, since this is an RPG turn-based game, you can customize your build to gain more AP from other factors in combat. This is something that is really interesting, and this is something that I really love with RPG games, is where you get to customize the character multiple ways for what you want to be, as long as the game allows it. That's something I love about RPG games. Now, aside from the combat side of things in Clair Obscur Expedition 33, there are also some other things that the game has to offer in which I really want to cover. As far as Clair Obscur Expedition 33 goes, you get to journey across this beautiful world that is really interesting in my opinion, and as you journey across this beautiful world going on this important mission, you have the ability to switch between different party members at any time in the game. Throughout the journey, you will find various outfits, and where you can change your characters to have different types of outfits, as well as change the hairstyle. But just be warned, FYI, is that changing the outfit or the hairstyle, it is all pure cosmetics. There is no value other than the cosmetics. You will not become stronger, you will not become buffer. It doesn't affect your skills or abilities. Now, as far as what you can do with the beautiful world, the environment and such, you can engage with the environment in various ways. You could make use of, climbing hooks. You can also make use of your own grappling hook that you personally own. And throughout the world, there are also paint cages, which are environmental puzzles where, if you solve it, it can really help with making your journey much more efficient. There will be some valuable resources, as it appears, to make your journey much easier to roam around. There are also this kind of thing called pictos, which is basically gear in other classic RPG games, and where when you equip it, it will give stat bonuses to the specific character that you equip the pictos to. And by equipping the different pictos for a specific character, you will help the character to learn Lumina, which is a unique passive skill in combat. So that is something that is just really really interesting. I love how, the studio makes these interesting names for these specific types of gameplay mechanics. I feel like it just makes it more interesting because personally for me, even though it takes a little bit time to potentially learn what this is that to translate this to a more general term, but I love how there is a uniqueness on the specific terms and there is a mystery and whatnot. It is something that's just really interesting. Now, as far as the general premises of the story goes, in this game you get to lead a group called, Expedition 33, in which it is your job to go on this mission to destroy the paintress who basically just paints a specific age, and where whoever is at a specific age, they will just die. So you are basically stopping the paintress from painting death and saving humanity. Now, as far as important character goes in Clair Obscur Expedition 33, there are quite a few, and they are also quite interesting in my opinion as well. So let's start out with Gustav. Gustav is an engineer who is devoted to help defend his city as well as protect and provide for his people. It is something that is really honorable and really rewarding in my opinion. Now, as far as Mel goes, Mel is Gustav's foster sister. She is the youngest in the crew, only 16 years old, which is something that is really notable because I think everybody in the crew, again, I don't know, just based on, observation from the characters, how they look and whatnot, all the other characters are well in their adulthood, it appears. And so Mel looks like being the only minor in the crew, so that is something that is really interesting. And she is really destined to map out her own destiny without having anything to hold her back. Jennifer English, who portrays Mel, she describes Mel as being independent, fierce, and complicated. Now, we also have Loon, who is a daughter of highly respected researchers, and her duty for the expedition is to plan and roadmap for expedition to make sure that the mission will go as planned and will not fail. Make sure that they will succeed at all costs. Now, there's another character called Skill. Skill is a former farmer and now teacher, and where she has a really painful, dark past. However, she doesn't really show it too much outwardly. Outwardly, she appears as a lady who is outgoing, warm, and she knows how to accept how unforgiving the world is around her, and she is really not afraid of failure. Now, we also have Renoir. Renoir looks like a middle-aged type of man. My guess is probably he's in the 40s or 50s, and his goal with joining with the expedition, he wants to seek to save his family at all costs. And then there's also Verso, who is a mysterious man tracking the expedition. We don't know much about it as far as research goes. And there's also Monaco, who is a gang of beings who basically joins the expedition not so much because they want to make a difference, but that they are thirsting for battle. They love the adrenaline that the battle, the chaoticness brings. And then there is also Eski, who is also a mythical being. We don't know much about it unless we play the game. The thing is about these characters is that I feel like they are all really interesting, and I feel like they all have something to offer to the table. Again, I don't know, but hopefully there will be a really compelling story. I feel like it just seems like something that will be really compelling and really engaging, at least based on what I've seen. It's just something that is definitely something that appeals to me greatly. Now, as far as the length of Clair Obscur Expedition 33 goes, it is not too long and not too short in my opinion. According to some data found, I think on IGN or any of those gaming websites that they talk about these type of games, it takes about 30 hours to beat and 60 hours to 100% and get all the achievements. So it is a game in which it is not too long, not too short. I feel like it's just about right. I do play longer games. I do play games that are, 100 hours long or even more, like obviously Metaphor and Persona. Those games are very long, but for me, I'm very selective in games that are longer because as a nomadic gamer, I'm somebody who loves to experience as many games as possible. I mean, obviously I like to finish a game, but I also don't like for it to become a drag, become a chore, become a burden, become very time consuming that it just becomes not fun anymore. And that's something in which I will say for some games, they ought to be short shorter and they are longer than what it ought to be, in my personal opinion. Obviously, there are exceptions. Like I said, I love Persona, I love the characters, the developments and whatnot, and same thing, I love Metaphor, and as well as, even on the Nintendo side, I love the Xenoblade Chronicle games. Those games are different. Those are the exception in which I am willing to pour my heart and mind and invest in those characters because I find them really interesting. But for the most part, I'm somebody who doesn't like games that are way too long. I like games where they are just about the right length. For me, a game should be as long as just how it should be, where it just keeps me entertained. And for Clair Obscur Expedition 33, having it 30 hours to beat and 60 hours to 100% get all the achievements, I personally think that as far as the game goes, as far as just, again, this is all just speculation, as far as looking at the trailers and whatnot, I feel like 30 hours is a game that is plentiful for me. But again, I could be totally wrong. The game may be better if it was longer. Again, I don't know, but I just feel like 30 hours is not too bad as far as a turn-based RPG game goes, because a lot of turn-based RPG games, they take a lot more time in order to complete. But overall, I'm really stoked for Clair Obscur Expedition 33. I'm really interested about the story of the game, specifically the characters, how they will work together as a team to make the dream work. That is something in which I find that I'm really interested in, because all the different characters, they all are unique and different in many different ways. So that is something that I find really interesting. I feel like there will be an interesting story, and where, there will be potentially some kind of character development going on in the game. Again, I am not sure. I don't have a review copy of the game. This is all from observation and speculation, as well as I'm really interested in how well the gameplay mechanics will go as far as combat goes, and also the world as well. I'm really interested in just exploring the world and figuring out those bits and pieces of it, as well as what I really am interested also is Clair Obscur Expedition 33, the title of the game. Clair, I don't know who that is. I'm really interested in why it's called Clair Obscur Expedition 33, because as far as the characters goes, based on my research, I don't see anyone called Clair in the game, so I don't know why this title is called Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Is it the name of the painter or what it is? Again, I don't know, but once again, all this we shall wait and see to find out, and I will definitely buy the game day one on the Steam Deck, play the game for as long as possible, and the next day most likely share my thoughts and update video on what to expect with it if you were to buy it on the Steam Deck. But yeah, friends, are you excited for Clair Obscur Expedition 33? Is it a game in which you will definitely want to check out day one, or are you thinking about potentially waiting? Let me know in the comment section below. And as always, if you love gaming lists, gaming reviews, gaming discussions, and everything related to the Steam Deck, please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe so you'll not miss another video. I try to post Mondays and Fridays around 6 p.m. Pacific time, so stay tuned. Once again, my name is Joe Wang from the Nomadic Gaming Guild, and game on!